I found it in the inside pocket of my blazer. A small white card. Thick paper, the kind that costs more than it should. Her name printed in clean letters. No title, no company logo, no LinkedIn handle. Just a name. And underneath it, in smaller print, "Ask me the real question." I stood there in my bathroom at 11:30 at night, still in the blazer I had worn to that dinner, holding that card between two fingers like it might mean nothing. But my heart was doing something that meant everything. I had to think back to how the evening started. I had agreed to it on a whim. A blind date, set up by my coworker Pam, who had been telling me for months that I needed to get out of my apartment and stop ordering the same Thai food every Friday. I hadn't been on a date in almost 2 years. I wasn't sure I even remembered how. Pam had described her as impressive, successful, someone who built her company from nothing. I remember nodding and thinking, great, I'm going to sit across from someone who talks about quarterly revenue for 3 hours. I did not expect Vivian Chen. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description. She was already at the table when I arrived. I almost walked past her. She wasn't what I had pictured. Whatever that means. Whatever image Pam's description had built in my head. She was sitting very still, looking at her phone with one hand wrapped around a glass of water. And when the hostess said, "Your party is here," she looked up and, I don't know, something in my chest just shifted. She stood to greet me and she was taller than I expected, wearing a dark blazer over a white shirt, hair pulled back at the neck. She smiled the way people smile when they're genuinely pleased and not just performing it. "Maya," she said, not a question. She already knew my name. "That's me," I said, which, great start. She laughed and it was quiet and it was real, and I thought, okay, I can do this. We sat. We ordered wine. I was waiting for the thing where you talk about your job for 20 minutes and realize you have nothing in common and start counting down to dessert. That's how it always went, for me. That was the shape of every date I had ever been on. But Vivian didn't ask me what I did for a living. She didn't ask me about my family or where I grew up or whether I preferred the city to the suburbs. She picked up her wine glass, looked at me like she was reading something she hadn't expected to find, and said, "What's the thing you've never done that you think about most?" I blinked. "Excuse me?" "The thing," she said. "The one you keep almost doing. The one you talk yourself out of." I laughed. The nervous kind. The kind that fills a silence you don't know what to do with. "That's a very strange first question." "You're right," she said. "It is." And she didn't take it back. I felt my heart pounding, not in a dramatic way. Not the way you feel it in your throat before a speech or the way you feel it when something scares you. It was quieter than that. It was the kind of pounding that happens when something unexpected is actually happening and your body registers it before your brain does. I answered her. I told her about the novel I'd been starting and abandoning for 7 years. Always the same first 3 chapters. Always the same excuse that I wasn't ready yet, wasn't good enough yet. I had never told anyone that. Not Pam, not my sister, not anyone I'd dated before. I told a stranger at a restaurant table on a blind date. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "That's real," she said finally. "What does that mean?" "It means I believe you." She tilted her head. Most people answer that question with something they've already half done. A trip they keep almost booking. A class they already looked up. "You told me something that actually cost you something to say." I didn't know what to do with that. So I asked her the same question. What was hers? She looked at me for a long moment. A moment that lasted exactly 1 second longer than it needed to. "I'll tell you," she said, "if this is still going well in an hour." And it was. It absolutely was. She was the CEO of a tech company I had actually heard of. One of those success stories that gets written about in business publications with headlines like, against all odds, and she built it alone. She had started it at 27 with her college roommate, a woman named Dara, who now ran the operations side while Vivian handled everything else. She talked about Dara the way you talk about someone who has been through a fire with you. Not with romance, with loyalty, the kind that doesn't need to explain itself. She asked me about my work. I'm a graphic designer. I run my own small studio. And she actually listened. She asked follow-up questions. She said, "That's interesting," and meant it, which sounds like a small thing, but the way she said it made the whole room go a little quieter for a second. We were 3 glasses of wine in before I realized I hadn't looked at my phone once. The hour came and went, and I almost forgot. She remembered. "An hour," she said. I looked up. "What?" I said I'd tell you. She folded her hands on the table. "What I've never done." I waited. "I've never let a date go past 9 o'clock, she said. "I'm very good at leaving. I'm very good at knowing exactly when enough is enough." She paused. "It's 10:12 right now." The candle between us flickered. I didn't say anything for a moment. "What does that mean?" I finally asked. She smiled. It was different from her other smiles. Smaller, more careful. "I'm not entirely sure yet," she said. I thought about it for 3 days. That's the thing nobody tells you about a good conversation. It doesn't end when you walk out the door. It follows you. It sits in the passenger seat on the drive home. It's there when you're making coffee in the morning and you catch yourself replaying a specific sentence, a specific tone, the way someone's voice dipped when they said something true. I kept replaying the moment she said I'm not entirely sure yet. I replayed the way she had looked at me right before she said it. That pause, that extra second. The thing that my body had registered before my brain did. I told myself it was just a good date. That's all. She was interesting and beautiful and a little bit intimidating, and we had a good conversation. And that's what a good date is. And there was nothing else to analyze. But then she texted me. 2 days after, mid-afternoon on a Tuesday. A message with no preamble. "The coffee at the place across from your studio is better than anything we have in our office building. I walked past it yesterday. Thought you should know." I stared at that message for longer than I should have. She had been near my studio. She knew where my studio was because I had mentioned the street. She had thought of me when she walked past a coffee shop. I wrote back. "It is. The owner's name is Gloria, and she remembers every regular's order." She responded, "That sounds like a story you know." I wrote, "First week I opened the studio. I forgot to eat for 3 days straight. Gloria started leaving a pastry on the counter for me without being asked." There was a pause. Then, "She sounds like someone who sees people." I put my phone down, picked it up again, put it down. I said it out loud to my empty studio, just to hear how it sounded. It's just a nice conversation. It was just a nice conversation. I went home and tried to work on chapter 4 of the novel. I got 6 sentences in before I stopped. I don't know why I stopped. I just sat there looking at the screen, and I was thinking about a question. What's the thing you've never done? And I was thinking about how strange it was that she had asked it, and how strange it was that I had answered honestly, and how strange it felt to want to answer honestly when someone asked me something real. My last date, before Vivian, before all of this, had been 1.5 years ago. We had gotten to a 3rd date before I realized I had been performing the whole time. Being the version of Maya who was easy and agreeable and low maintenance. I had been so good at it that I hadn't even noticed I was doing it until she looked at me one evening and said, "Sometimes I feel like I'm talking to someone who's very carefully deciding what to say." She wasn't wrong. I went home that night and didn't call her again. Not because she had done anything wrong, but because she had seen something I wasn't ready to be seen doing. Vivian hadn't given me the chance to perform. She had asked me a question that cut straight through the warm-up and landed somewhere I hadn't been accessed in a long time, and I had answered before I could construct the careful version. That was what kept bothering me. Not that I liked her, though I did. Not that she was beautiful, though she was. It was that I had been real with her. Accidentally, immediately, entirely real, and now I didn't know what to do with that. I texted Pam. You didn't tell me she was like that. Pam texted back 3 seconds later. Like what? Tell me everything. I didn't know what to say. I wrote exactly what she asked me. The first question she asked me, Pam, what did she ask? Me, what's the thing you've never done that you think about most? Pam, oh my God, she did not. Me, she did. Pam, Maya. Me, I know. Pam, Maya. Me. I said I know. I put the phone face down on my desk and looked out the window for a minute. The street below was doing its regular evening thing. People walking fast, someone on a bike, a woman with a small dog who always stopped at the same corner. My chest felt like it was running slightly ahead of the rest of me. I picked the phone up again. Vivian had messaged, "Are you free Saturday?" Saturday came. We went to a museum. Her idea, a photography exhibit I hadn't heard of. I almost said I had plans. I almost invented something. I could feel myself wanting to create distance, and I didn't fully understand why. So I said yes instead, which is what I do when I'm scared. I go toward the thing that scares me before I can think about it too hard. She was waiting outside when I arrived. She had a coffee in each hand. I texted Gloria, she said, handing one to me. I stopped walking. You texted Gloria? I introduced myself, told her I was bringing you by tomorrow, and asked what you usually had. She looked at me over the rim of her own cup. She said you always get the same thing, and you always pretend you're going to get something different first. I laughed. I didn't mean to. It just came out. That's an invasion of privacy, I said. It's due diligence, she said. And we walked into the museum like that, and I was still laughing a little, and something inside me was paying very close attention to the fact that she had done that she had gone slightly out of her way to do something small and specific and exactly right. The exhibit was portraits, big ones, floor to ceiling in some rooms, faces of strangers mostly. People caught in moments they hadn't planned on. There was one I kept coming back to, a woman sitting at a window, looking at something outside the frame, expression unreadable. She could have been happy. She could have been exhausted. She could have been deciding something. What do you think she's looking at? Vivian asked. She had come to stand beside me, close enough that I could sense the warmth of her. I don't know, I said, something that just changed. I felt her look at me instead of the photograph. I didn't turn my head. I kept my eyes on the woman in the frame. That's specific, Vivian said. You asked. I did. We moved on through the exhibit. We talked about the photographs in the way you talk about them when you're really talking about something else, using the images as permission to say things you wouldn't say directly. She talked about a series of hands doing different kinds of work, and she said something about how the work you choose to do with your hands is the most honest thing about a person. I talked about a series of doorways, people caught mid-threshold, mid-decision, and I said something about how the most interesting moment is always the one just before the choice. Before, she said. Not after? After. You already know what you decided. I looked at the doorway photograph. Before, you could still go either way. That's where everything lives. She was quiet for a moment. You think about this a lot, she said. It wasn't a question. It was an observation. The kind you make when you've been listening carefully. More than I probably should, I said. I don't think there's a should about it. We had lunch after. A small Italian place nearby, the kind with paper tablecloths and bread that came out warm. We talked about her company, a difficult quarter she was navigating, a decision she'd been postponing. She was candid about it in a way that surprised me. She wasn't performing confidence. She was sitting with the uncertainty out in the open, turning it over. Most people don't talk like that, I said. Like what? Like they're still figuring it out. Most people in your position talk like the decision's already made. Like they knew from the beginning. She tore a piece of bread. That's a performance, she said. I've gotten very good at spotting it because I used to do it myself. What changed? She looked at me. That look again, the one that lasted a second longer. I got tired, she said simply, of knowing what I was going to say before I said it. I thought about that for the rest of lunch. I thought about it on the walk back, when we were standing on the corner where we'd split off in different directions, and she turned to face me and said, I'm going to ask you something and you can tell me if it's too much. My heart did something. I kept my face still. Okay, I said. The novel, she said. The one you've been starting for 7 years. Do you have the first 3 chapters with you? On your phone or something? I blinked. Yes. They're in a notes app. Can I read them? The wind picked up slightly between us. Nobody's read them, I said. I know, she said. That's why I'm asking. I didn't answer right away. I looked at her standing there on the corner in the afternoon light, hair still pulled back, hands in her coat pockets, and I thought, this is the doorway. This is exactly the moment I was talking about. The before. I sent her the document. She texted me 3 hours later. 1 message. She was right to be afraid of what she wanted. But she was wrong about what to do with it. I read it 4 times. Then I put my phone in my pocket and sat with the feeling, which was large and unfamiliar, and something I didn't have a word for yet. 3 hours after that, I got another message. Thank you for trusting me with it. I sat at my kitchen counter for a long time after that. I thought about the last few weeks, the first night, and the question she had asked, and the hour that was supposed to be the end. The coffee she had gotten from Gloria, the museum, and the photograph of the woman at the window, and the conversation about doorways, the way she listened. The way she made me answer honestly before I could stop myself. I thought about the feeling in my chest that had started on the first night and had not gone away since. And I thought about a word I wasn't using. A word that was sitting right there, available, accurate, waiting for me to pick it up. I didn't pick it up. I told myself I was tired. I made tea. I went to bed. But I lay in the dark for a long time. And the word was still there. And I knew, even then, even before I was ready to, that I had already passed through the doorway. I just hadn't turned around to look yet. But before we continue, if you've made it this far, it's because this story touched something you recognize. That feeling you can't quite name yet, but know the shape of completely. So go ahead and hit the like button right now. It helps me keep bringing stories like this one to you. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe now and turn on the bell so YouTube notifies you every time a new story comes out on this channel. Now tell me in the comments, have you ever been in a conversation where you answered honestly before you could stop yourself, and then couldn't take it back? What happened? Type it for me. I read every single one. And tell me too. What city are you watching from? I'll mark it with a heart. Now, back to our story. 2 weeks later, Vivian told me she was leaving New York. Not forever, not permanently. A 6-month residency in San Francisco. Something her company had been building toward. A partnership she needed to be present for. She had known it was coming for a while. She had not mentioned it. She told me on a Wednesday evening, at the kitchen table in her apartment, where I had been sitting for the first time, drinking coffee that was better than it had any right to be. I remember what I was looking at when she said it. A small plant on the windowsill. Unpretentious. The kind of thing you buy at a farmer's market because it was there and it was alive and you thought, I can take care of this. 6 months, I said. 6 months, she said. I looked at the plant. When? 3 weeks. The coffee cup was warm in my hands. I held it very still. Why are you telling me now? I asked. Not accusatory, genuinely wanting to know. She was quiet for a moment. Because I've been trying to figure out the right time, she said. And I don't think there is one. And I didn't want to not tell you. Those are different things, I said. Yes, she said. They are. I set the cup down. I looked at her, really looked at her, across that table, in the light of her kitchen in the apartment she had clearly built carefully and lived in quietly. The bookshelves full of books with broken spines. The photos arranged on one wall, all slightly tilted in a way she had definitely noticed and decided to leave. I looked at her, and I finally stopped fighting the word. It wasn't a moment of drama. Nobody cried. Nobody spoke for a while. It was just a clarity. The kind that comes not when you find something new, but when you stop arguing with what you already knew. I was falling for her. Not had fallen, was falling. Right then, in that kitchen, with 3 weeks left on the clock. Okay, I said. Okay? She tilted her head. I mean, I hear you. I exhaled slowly. I hear you. And I'm glad you told me. And I don't know what to do with it. You don't have to do anything with it, she said. I know, I said. That's not the problem. She looked at me. And in her eyes was something that I had been catching glimpses of since the first night. Something careful and warm and slightly afraid, which surprised me, because she seemed like someone who didn't let fear show easily. What is the problem? She asked, very quietly. I looked down at my hands, then back up at her. The problem, I said, is that I've been very carefully not saying something for 2 weeks, and I think you know what it is, and I think you're waiting to see if I'm going to say it, and I don't know if I can. She didn't fill the silence. She just waited. That was the thing about her. She could hold a silence without trying to fix it. I don't know what I'm doing, I said finally. I've dated, obviously, I've had relationships, but I've never felt like... I stopped, started again. I've never been scared like this, and I've been trying to talk myself out of it because it doesn't fit into anything neat. And I was doing fine at talking myself out of it until about 40 seconds ago. She nodded slowly. Not in the way people nod when they agree, in the way they nod when they finally have the piece they were missing. I know, she said. You knew? I knew you were trying to talk yourself out of it. A pause. I wasn't sure what was underneath. And now? She looked at me for a long moment. Now I'm sure, she said. 3 weeks is not a lot of time. It's a lot of coffee. A lot of evenings that started with I should probably go home and ended hours later. A lot of conversations that kept going deeper instead of leveling out the way most conversations do when you've known someone long enough. We never leveled out. Every time I thought we'd found the floor of it, there was more. The night before she left, we sat on the steps of her building in the cold. It was late. The street was mostly quiet. Just the occasional car, the distant sound of music from somewhere down the block. She had given the keys to her subletter that morning. The apartment was already not hers anymore. She was wearing a dark coat I had never seen before. I noticed it. New coat, I said. It's for San Francisco, she said. Apparently it's colder than people think. I looked at the street. You're going to be fine, I said. I know. The company's going to be fine. I know that too. I felt her looking at me. What are you actually saying? she asked. I exhaled. The cold air made it visible. I don't know, I said. I've been trying to think of the right thing to say since you told me you were going, and I haven't found it. I looked at her. I think I wanted to say something that made this feel less like an ending, but I don't think I can do that honestly. She was quiet for a moment. It's not an ending, she said. You're getting on a plane tomorrow. I know. She looked at the street too. And I'll be back in 6 months. And between now and then, there are phones and time zones and the fact that I already know what coffee you order. She paused. That's not nothing. It's not nothing, I agreed. But I knew, even saying it, that it wasn't the full truth either. 6 months is a long time to hold something that hasn't been named fully yet. 6 months is a long time when you're still learning the shape of what you feel, when you haven't found the words that fit it exactly, when the whole thing is still in its before. We didn't have a dramatic goodbye. I had been expecting it, bracing for it, preparing for some kind of moment that would feel conclusive one way or another. It didn't come. She stood when it was time. I stood too. She put her hand on my arm, just for a second, just a touch through a coat sleeve in the cold. And she looked at me with that look I had been cataloging for 3 weeks, the one that lasted exactly 1 second longer than it needed to. I'll call you when I land, she said. Okay, I said. Read chapter 4, she said. You're ready. And then she went inside. I stood there on the step for another minute. The city kept doing what it does. Indifferent, continuous. Someone walked a dog. A light came on in a window above me. The music from down the block was still playing, though fainter. I thought about the photograph from the museum, the woman at the window, looking at something outside the frame. The expression that could have been anything. I had said she was looking at something that had just changed. I understood that differently now. I walked home. The city was cold and honest about it. I didn't try to figure out what I felt. I had spent 3 weeks trying to figure out what I felt, and it had only ever gotten in the way of just feeling it. So I walked, and I let it be large and unresolved and real. She called when she landed. I was at my desk. Chapter 4 open in front of me, cursor blinking. Her voice came through clear and a little tired. I'm here, she said. How was it? Long, turbulent over Denver. A pause. I thought about you. I closed my eyes for a second. I started chapter 4, I said. I heard her smile. I know that sounds strange, hearing a smile, but I did. Good, she said. We didn't talk long. She needed to sleep. I needed to write. Those were the facts. But after we hung up, I sat there for a long time. The cursor was still blinking. The chapter was still waiting. And something in me was different. Not resolved, not certain, not any of the neat things I had been looking for. Just awake. Like something that had been holding its breath for a very long time had finally, quietly, without announcement, exhaled. I put my hands on the keyboard, and I started to write. She didn't stay. And neither did the version of me who needed everything to be certain before she could feel anything. That version is the one I miss sometimes. A little. She was very organized. But the one who took her place, the one who sent 3 chapters to a stranger on a first date and got a coffee from a woman named Gloria and stood on cold steps and let something be unfinished without trying to fix it. She's writing chapter 4. That's not nothing. If this story found you in the right moment, write Saudade in the comments. That's how I'll know you stayed with me until the end. And if you want more stories that live right here, in the honest, unfinished, real parts of love, click on the video showing on your screen right now. A big kiss. Until the next story. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description.